today for the webinar on Get Rid of Obsolete Talent Acquisition Methods and Future for Your Talent Needs from Today, in partnership with Kelly Services. I am Ritu from People Matters, and before going to the agenda for today's webinar, let me view on topic. The golden era of job boards is revealing in many countries. Disruptive innovation is not only changing the nature of jobs, but also the ways to attract talent. Every HR decision maker needs to understand how these trends and get ahead of competition for talent. Revamp your talent acquisition toolkit to build tomorrow's talent needs. The key outcomes we are looking for from today's webinar are how to tap employee network for referrals and build talent communities. Why traditional spray techniques are not enough? What HR can learn from online marketing for consumers? How KellyOCG pursues the global market trends in future developments. Let me now introduce our speaker for the webinar. We have the privilege of having us Tim Proehm, Senior Director at the Center of Excellence for Recruitment Process Outsourcing, KellyOCG. With more than 15 years experience in design and implementation of complex HR outsourcing solutions and innovative HR technologies, he today drives strategic innovation and digital initiatives for KellyOCG in Europe. Tim serves as advisor to several international HR technology startups and has an excellent overview of the latest trends in market development in this area. Before joining KellyOCG, Tim served as HR strategy consultant as managing director for a multinational recruitment processing outsourcing provider. A partner for today's webinar is KellyOCG. Kelly Outsourcing Group is the leading provider of global talent management solutions. They consult with top organizations to architect innovative and customized workforce strategies that allows their clients to achieve their strategic goals and bottom line profitability. Their solutions include recruitment processes, managed service provider, and talent supply chain management. We would say for you to ask your questions at the end of the webinar session. For those who are attending the live session, you can submit your questions anytime during the presentation through the Q&A section, and we will try our best to respond as many questions as time allows. We have a full exciting agenda for today's session, so without any further delay, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Tim. Over to you, Tim.
Hey, perfect. Thank you so much, and I hope that everyone can hear me loud and clear because I am actually in Europe today. But let's just jump right in. We have 1 hour. We will reserve, or have planned to reserve, around 15 minutes for questions. And let me just start. Okay, you've seen the picture. Just to add to what the host was answering already. I'm located in Germany, so if you see on the map, I'm around 4,500 miles away from Bangalore as today. And for the last 15 years, I worked and served in a lot of different roles in the HR services industry, in staffing, doing a lot of HR tech and innovation. And today, for KellyOCG, I focus on digital strategies. I focus a lot on HR technologies and obviously HR innovation, because a lot of our customers all around the world understand that the talent acquisition function is changing, and that the requirement is changing, and that strategies and tactics that were helping you 5 years ago do not perform so well. And as a result, they seek our advice, and we counsel them on how to do it better. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I would really appreciate that. You see the Twitter handle, and if you want to contact me, send me an email. I'm very happy to help. Also, my local colleagues from Kelly are always very happy to help. Okay, just KellyOCG. explain briefly what we are. We are a full-blown outsourcing provider who focuses on HR and HR talent management, so managing temporary staff, managing permanent recruitment, career transition, a lot of executive advisory services, so really one-stop solution when it comes to HR outsourcing. So let's just jump in and let me tell you what we will cover in the webinar. And in order to set the stage for the development, I will give you a quick overview on how I perceive the traditional hire approach and how it has evolved over time. After that, I'm going to cover, I'll speak a lot about online candidate attraction, because for a lot of companies today, it's very, very important that they make sure, in talent acquisition and recruiting, make sure that the company and the jobs are found, and they're found online by the candidates. And at the same time, it's very important to cut through the noise, because the internet is really a huge space. There are a lot of things where candidate or job seekers can go, and it's very, very important to have a good presence and really understand how job search works today. So we will cover that. And then the last big topic I will talk about today is what I call the future of network recruiting, where recruiting, we all understand that, needs to be much more proactive in the future. It's much easier to hire from a warm relationship with the candidates you've been in contact before. If you're able to hire from referrals or any other sources, that's in a lot of economies very, very much more effective than just posting a job online and praying that someone will apply. Okay, but let's just jump right in. I'm sure that you that you understand that over the last years, recruiting and hiring pretty much has changed. And if you look at the picture on the bottom on the left, like in the old, it was very common that you would just hang a sign in the window, and if you were a shop owner or you would run a machinery shop or something, you would really say, hey, I'm looking to hire. I want to hire somebody. If you are interested, just knock on the door and come in. So it was as easy as that. And the downside is that you would only people who would actually walk by, or you would rely on the word of mouth. So from the 90s on a global basis, you'd see that we would see more and more job ads in the newspapers, and then you would receive a much wider reach by not just targeting the people that pass by your store or by your machinery shop, but you would target a location that would be reading the newspaper. And the newspaper actually then would have a special segment and then would offer a collection of ads where companies could advertise. So around 1995, there were the first job boards in the internet, the emergence of the internet, and then what we see since pretty much 2000 is that everything goes digital now. And this is not only that in the times you would write your CV by hand. Then at a certain point you would write it on your PC, you would print it out, you would send it to a company. Later on, then you would write the CV, send it by email. And what we see today, and that's pretty much state of the art for everyone, is that you now have technology where people can apply online just by an applicant track system. Or through job boards or your career site. So the question that we see very often that we discuss with a lot of customers is, so what's the next big trend? So job boards, we understand, is still a very successful business model, but what's coming next? And this is what I want to discuss with you here today. So the problem that we with the traditional recruiting, and this has been really imminent in a lot of economies that lack talent, where there are not enough talented engineers or talented young people available in the market, is that traditional recruiting is really focusing on the one way to broadcast. You would post something and you would just spread it out on the job board or in the website, but it's not really a discussion. It's just a one-size-fits-all approach. you would not focus on individual target groups. So if you go to a job board and you post it, it might be that a lot of people see the job ads that are actually not qualified to work for your company or to apply for the job in the ad. Very often there's specific content for the target groups, so that if you want to hire an engineer, he would see the same content as an IT professional or a nurse or a teacher, as an example. The other thing is that it's a very much a reactive setup, and this is how hiring is working in a lot of organizations still today, that somebody is leaving the company, and all of a sudden you need to find a replacement. Everybody's getting very, very hectic and say, hey, we need to fill that position now. But in a lot of organizations globally, there's not a proper workforce planning approach, so that recruiting is not really proactive, but rather reactive, and you need to solve the problem when it comes up. And the last point on that slide is that typically with a lot of companies, there's little interaction with potential candidates. And I see that, especially in Europe and also in the US, that you have a career site, you have a job board ad, and literally the only thing you can do is apply. You can apply online. There is not really an email address where you ask questions. There is not a point of contact that is referenced in the ad, and there's certainly not a telephone number, because a lot of big organizations don't want to have that interaction. They rather want to make sure that they funnel the candidates through the technology. So, and this is also something that scares off a lot of candidates, that leads to uncompleted application. Potential candidates really would like to learn more about the company and also learn more about specific content nowadays. That's one of the trends we see. What I have been experiencing over the last month, especially, is that when you look at the hiring funnel, in the past you would really look at the lower and the lower bottom. So somebody would apply on your homepage, on career page. Somebody would apply to a job ad, and then you would work to bring him through the funnel. So you would pre-screen the applications, would set up telephone interviews. You can set up live interviews, have assessment centers. So multiple things in order to make sure that the applicant becomes ultimately a hire. So somebody you can hire for your company and then actually start to work with you. Over the last month, there has been a lot of talk globally about the importance of recruitment marketing, because what very often we as recruiters underestimated in the past was that it's not only important how you funnel people and how you bring people through the funnel, but the more important things in a lot of economies now is how do you really make sure that that people find you, that people find the jobs, that you attract people, and therefore it's really important to add up to the funnel and really look, okay, what's happening before people actually apply. So, and what we see, and the picture is misleading actually, because what could happen is that the top of the funnel is not a straight path. So people might actually zigzag in and out through the different stages of the funnel, because they might see different touch points with your company. They might see a job ad, obviously on the job board. Maybe they're not ready to apply yet. They might see something on Facebook because a friend liked something, some content of your company. They might browse Glassdoor and look at reviews. They might see something on Twitter. You name it. So there are many things that basically leads to the fact that a candidate can have multiple touch points with your organization before he actually applies. And a lot of the companies that we speak with today don't really have the technology to measure the different touch points. So they don't know exactly how does the candidate journey really look like. Did he visit the career site before? Was he only on the job board? Was he active and engaging in social media? So very often there is limited understanding of what's happening. And what I see very often is that companies often struggle to really identify what the real source of hire is, because in the concept I'm just showing you, it might be the case that someone actually has seen a job ad, then he looked at the Glassdoor reviews of your company, then he looked at the Facebook or LinkedIn presence that the company has. Initially, he landed on the career site that you have, and he applied. So very often, source of hire that is measured in companies is the career site, but I always challenge that because I don't know really if that is the case, and if people have not been in contact with the company in different other places without the company knowing. So I think that's what I'm trying to say here. So in the new world of network recruiting, and I'm going to explain what that means a little later, I think there are like three different approaches and then three steps that you have to follow if you want to be a best-in-class talent acquisition organization or recruiting or the organization. And very, very important nowadays to attract people. So there's a lot of sources out there. You want to hire the best candidate, and I think the attraction piece is very often important, especially if you're not only looking for actively job searching candidates, but also for passively job searching candidates. So people who might have a job, maybe do something it's like fill a position you want to fill with a competitor or work for a competitor. And they're not actively looking at the job boards that you're having. So you want to make sure that you stand out and then people actually find you. The second step is that you want to make sure that once you have the interest of the candidate, you capture him. So you give him content. You give him something that's worth returning for, so that you can start to have and build a relationship with the candidate. And then the last step is the conversion, where you make sure that someone you attracted before and then you captured and build a relationship with actually becomes a candidate and ideally an employee. So I think this is like the three-step approach, and I'll follow that during the session. So let's just quickly look at the different recruiting channels that we have at companies, and just quickly talk about how this is really working from a traditional versus a network recruiting perspective. So on the left, the print channel that I discussed briefly, which is very, very traditional, not a lot of interaction, not a lot of engagement and attraction. And the more you move to the right, the more you have the ability to hire from a warm relationship, from talent community, from social media, where you engage with candidates before. Employee referrals, where your employees actually bring somebody they know into the company or refer to the company. But also like career site marketing and then job search aggregators that you all need to understand in order to track talent today. And let's just jump right in here. And we really want to start with, because it's still the predominant talent acquisition model or talent attraction model in a lot of economies. And I just want to talk a little about job boards, and you all know that, and I'm sure you use that a lot on your daily basis. But basically, the core business model of job boards has not really changed for the last 20 years. So they might offer additional services to you as companies today. They might have CV databases or do something else, offer promotion. But in general, it's like you bring your job to the job board, and the job board makes sure that it's promoted. They would do traditional marketing, maybe ads in newspapers where they promote their job board. They would do inbound marketing, and they offer valuable content, for example, to job seekers or other people who are interested, to make sure it's sound. They would invest in search engine optimization to make sure that the job seeker finds the job board on the internet. They would do search engine advertisement, where they would invest in Google AdWords or banner and display ads to make sure it's found. They'd be active on social media. Use the typical networks and the typical channels we all know. And last, they would also be active on events. Like for every HR show that I go to, there's a big number of job boards who are promoting their service. So at the end of the day, the deal was very, very simple, and you bring your job to the job board as a company, and the job board is then delivering applicants. So that's basically how it's been for the last 20 years. So I want to do a quick poll now, and maybe we can pull that up, because I'd like to understand how does the audience assess the quality of job boards, and maybe we just start the poll now. Okay, so you should be able to see the poll question here on the right box. And I'd like to understand what's the most important metric when you assess the quality of job boards that you're using. So what's very important for you? Is it the quality of the applicants? Is it fair pricing? Is it the quantity of the applicants? How many people applied? Is it the number of hires? Or is it the cost per hire? So let's just take 30 seconds, and I would appreciate if you could click on the button there. Okay, we have 50 more. Okay, perfect. Can we see results? Do we have results? Okay, that's working. We can look at that later on, but thank you for participating. Actually, perfect. Cool. We're going to talk about that later, so let's just jump right on. And we talk about the job boards. And one of the trends that I see today is that job board that they're working, but there's a whole lot of them. So if you're a job seeker, you have a wide variety of options. So and this is like really rough guesses. There are like more than 15,000 job boards in the world, more than 350,000 corporate career pages that have jobs as well, more than 250,000 staff companies that promote jobs on top of that. So as a job seeker, there is a lot of unclarity where to go to. There are a lot of niche job boards, and there are a lot of big job boards that attract a lot of people, but not necessarily deliver the right quality. So and one of the big trends that I see is that because there are like so many sources in the internet, and it's becoming so much more complex nowadays to look for jobs. We see the emergence of the job aggregators, and I'm not new to you, so you should be able to understand that picture, and you know that picture because over the last 2 to 3 years, job aggregators have really become to be very, very dominant. So if you look at like Indeed or Simply Hired, which was just acquired by Recruit Holdings from Japan, or LinkedIn, what they do is they get jobs from all over the internet. They get the information from job boards, from career pages, from staffing agencies, and basically aggregate that so that they really act as a one-stop shop for the candidates. And the business model they really want to. They want to focus on the reach and the traffic, and they really pull a lot of people in. And obviously, as a company, you can make sure that you buy up job ads there. You can obviously post for free. They can from your website, but you can post for money, have a more prominent ranking result. That's the point. Important for job boards is that it also traffic to them. So it's a very, very important thing, not only for the applicant but also for the job board. And I think this follows an overall trend, and now I think the very interesting part is starting, because what I see today is that very often search starts online, and so the aggregators are an overall trend that we see on the global basis, where search becomes very, very important, and where in the past you would go to a website if you want to travel and you want to book a travel, for example. You go for a website, you would buy the plane ticket, you would buy a hotel, you would buy the rental car, and nowadays there are like a lot of portals where you can do that just in one stop, and they basically do everything else. They pull data from all the different sources, and it's much easier for the candidate. And I think as talent acquisition, it's very important to understand that, especially the younger generation that grew up with these technologies, and they grew up with these procedures. They will take concept and and do that also for their job search. And just to give you a quick detour here, this is the daughter of my best friend. She's 16 years old, and this year in summer she wanted to take a job in order to make some money. She wanted to buy something and she wanted to save. And it was very interesting for me to understand how would she approach that, because as a professional, I would say, okay, is there like a niche boards, summerjobsforstudents.com or something like that? But by just having her look naturally, I really understood how the young generation that's about to enter the workforce in the next years have a totally different mindset and a totally different approach. And I think what we as organizations in HR need to understand is that very often job search only starts with 3 words, or maybe even only 2. And in the future, very likely, you will search for your job speaking into a microphone, which has totally different requirement for the natural voice processing capabilities of technology, but also really to understand as an organization, how can we really adjust to that? And what does that mean for our traditional talent acquisition and recruiting approach? So I think this is a very, very important thing, because all of a sudden we're in this where normally traditional marketing would come into play. So, and I think as recruiters, we really have to develop that marketing mindset and really understand the target group. So who are we aiming to target at, and how do we optimize job postings or our career sites so that the candidate really understands what the value is, and actually we can stand out in the internet. And I think that's something where we can learn a lot from consumer marketing. So just an example, and this is just a live example I have discussed with a customer several months ago, and it was in a company in the hospitality industry, and we were discussing how to source talent and basically what to do and how to improve. And they were having problems filling the jobs, and the strategy was to be special. We are a high-end, high-class hospitality company, and we want to be special to our customers. We want to delight our customers. And basically what we did then was we took a look at like what's the job titles, and they were actually looking for guest service managers, and this is what you can see here on the screen. But they wanted to call them guest delight managers, because it should be something different, something special, to stand out and really make a difference also for the candidate during the job search. So, and what happened was that we just quickly pulled up that Google Trends report that indicates the amount of searches for that relevant keyword, and then we're able to convince the customer that actually nobody is looking for guest delight manager jobs on the internet, and he got that because he didn't have the mindset to really understand what is the audience looking for, and how do candidates look for jobs today and in the future. So this is just one example I wanted to share. And another example I really like is this is a job ad I pulled from Spotify, the music streaming company, and they're pretty good in optimizing their job descriptions, not only to attract talent with relevant keywords that you hear, you talk about collaboration and passion, and you need to be analytical, but above all, your work will impact the way the world experiences music. I think that's really resonating with candidates, but at the same time, they also need to have search relevant keywords in there, so that if an engineer would look for an engineering infrastructure, internal IT, build, maintain, support, all the relevant keywords are in there as well. And my personal experience is that a lot of HR organizations have not really thought about that yet. And now they're trying to understand. I think it's a good way to really test the approach, to really understand what's working with candidates and what's not. But I think as HR and talent acquisition and special, we can learn from online marketers. I think that's the key message here. So let's move on to the capture phrase the capture step, because we talked about talent attraction and how important we here at KellyOCG perceive it is to be found and to optimize the online process and your online presence so that people can actually find you outside of the job board, but just by looking for you in a search. And and I think the next step now is, and this is what we see with best-in-class companies, that a lot of best-in-class companies, they optimize their career site by adding focus pages to individual target groups. And I brought an example. This is a German company. It's called Zalando. It's part of an internet conglomerate called Rocket Internet. And what they did, they built a special career site only for IT engineers. And as an engineer, you can go there, you learn about the culture, you learn about the locations where they have a technology blog where they describe how they solve different technical challenges, what the approach was. So it really gives you a look behind the scenes and behind the curtain, so that at the end of the day, the candidate has a much better experience and really understands what's the culture there. How does that benefit me as an engineer? How can I progress my career? Do they work on cool projects? Do they have good technology? So how the office is going to look like that I'm going to work in? And I think this is a very, very nice thing. I put the email address there. It's in English. I would encourage you to just go there after the webinar and take a look, because it's really, really important to understand that if you want to capture the candidate, it cannot be generic, and it cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach, because nowadays the audience nowadays requires much more. So if I sum up and talk about like what I would recommend companies and with regards to all intended attraction is, I think it's very important to keep your job postings and content on the website. I still see companies who just have a link and then basically link to a job board presence. This is always very, very dangerous because it affects the results you have in search. Second point we talked about, you need to make sure that your job titles are optimized, and that at the same time you use familiar job titles that are commonly used in the industry, so that the candidate has a better chance of finding you and finding your online presence. We talked about focus pages for hard-to-fill positions. I think this is also something best-in-class companies should definitely invest in. And you also need to educate the job seekers with engaging content. So in especially not just anything generic like best career tips or how to dress for an interview or the worst questions to have during an interview, but really something they see as an advantage to their professional development. And then the last stage, I think, in search engine optimization is something we clearly recommend, and best-in-class companies on the global level really understood that at this point. Okay. So the question I'm very, very often asked still, even though it's not a new thing, but the question I'm asked a lot is like, what about social media? How can we use that in a network recruiting approach? And I think it's a great way to attract people, but also to I think it's a great way to attract people, but also to engage people on a higher level. And what I usually recommend doing before you just jump in, because at a certain point in time, social media was very, very hip, and everybody wanted to do it and set up the online presence on Facebook and focus pages on LinkedIn and Twitter feeds. But actually, a lot of cases really failed bringing it to life and sustain it. So what I usually recommend for companies is to look and begin at the macro depth. So I've just pulled some numbers from different sources to take a look at the Asia Pacific region. I will jump specifically onto India in a minute. But it's always important to understand how is different technologies in social networks, how is it utilized and used in the different regions? And what you can see here is just a snippet from APAC, where when it comes to social media, you have about 30% penetration. What stands out is you have a lot of mobile connections from people who have mobile devices. And in general, a number of social media users who use their mobile device, a smartphone. So there's potential there. If I take a specific at India, I think we can see currently India is slightly behind when it comes to overall usage of social media. So with only around 10% of the total population in social media, what I find interesting is the number of mobile connections is very high, and that the number of social media users who use it on their smartphone is very high as well. What's even more impressive from the Indian perspective is that it's tremendous growth. So, like in the last year, 15% growth in social media usage, 8% growth in mobile subscription, 16% growth in social media mobile usage. And this is clearly a point where I only recommend to focus on social media, because even if the numbers will not be so impressive to some of you at that point, it will eventually catch up. And my personal prediction is that it will become even more important in the future. And as a talent acquisition function in a company, you really need to focus your efforts and really invest in that segment. Let me jump one step further, because we've seen that the overall data is very, very impressive and very important. But if I look at the different social networks, for example, for India, we see that the top 5 social networks, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, are very popular. And this is always a great chance to build communities, to have groups, to have certain career pages on LinkedIn, even Facebook. This is also something that everybody is considering right now. It's also a great chance to measure engagement. So how many people liked your posts? How many people commented? How many people shared? So social media is great from an analytical perspective, because it really gives you a chance to understand the audience, and you really get a lot of hidden feedback where you see, okay, what content really resonates with my audience and which content does not. I think the other thing that we should consider is the messenger and the chat functionality, and like if you look at like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and Skype, there are also neat things to do with this concept in recruiting. Setting up groups in WhatsApp, just as an example, sending out job alerts through the messenger, but maybe even try something bold and then dare to try something new and just say, hey, apply by WhatsApp, or if you have like certain sets that are very, very hard to find, hey, you have questions, just send me a message on WhatsApp. I think as recruiting and talent acquisition, we really need to be innovative and try something out. It might not work for every occasion, but I think there are a lot of great technologies on there that make it easier for you to reach your target audience and engage them in a talk and a discussion, and eventually also make them become an applicant and an employee. Last slide, social media, and I find that very, very impressive, and it's Facebook usage data. And what I find interesting here, if you look at the age groups, the demographics, who is on Facebook and which age groups, so you can clearly see that the segment of the 20 to 29-year-olds is very, very strong, strongly using Facebook in India. So for me, this is definitely something everybody should look at. And everybody should try to optimize if you're looking to hire young professionals or freshers, people who just directly come out of the university, because this is like a good thing or a good channel to engage with the people, also connect with them, and start to build a community. So I have asked 2 slides. So what I just wanted to do is talk a little about community building because it's important to understand that in the network recruiting methodology or approach that talent communities are not pipelines. So in talent acquisition and recruiting, we talk about pipelines a lot. So we want to make sure that the second or the third best candidate that we could not hire, but who were perfect as well, that we stay in touch with them, that we pool them, and just when there is a new position which fits, we can just pull them out and then make the hire quicker. Very, very often that does not really work because what I find if you manage something out of an ATS, somebody's applying to, and the minute after he applied, it is already historical data. Because if you pipeline someone, he might have found another job 3 weeks later, and you're not aware of that because you only have the CV in your ATS. He might have done a certificate, or he might have done some additional degree in school after hours. He might have changed the town, or he might have moved to a different country. So that's the limit of the traditional pipelining approach. And one of the big things everybody is talking about right now is talent communities. And my personal view here is that I think it's important to cover 3 critical areas. And the one thing, and we talked about that a lot during the webinar today, is the attract piece. So you really need to sure that people come to you, that people find you on the internet, that people find you on social media, that you have good career pages with content, and that the ability to sign up so that they see value in joining the talent community. The next piece, very important, is the engagement part. And I think engagement is very often in the industry underestimated. So you make sure that if you engage with them online, they have content they like, that they have regular touch points with your company, so that the relationship does not cool off completely. A lot of best-in-class companies do events for talent community members, where you would do have like a lunch or have a speaker come in and talk to people where you can sign up and then just join. Another thing that I also seen on the market, which I also like, there's also the chance to offer some educational pieces where, as a member of talent communities, you can be part of an online learning community, or you can attend online courses of the company that help you develop your professional background and also your professional skill set. So, and on the bottom of the slide, the manage page, I think this is always underestimated because I think in order to manage talent communities and to really utilize their power, you need to have a dedicated technology, and there are vendors out there who can offer that. I think the second step is you need to be very careful how to segment. This is what I was saying with the dedicated content, where you want to make sure that content that is valuable for an IT engineer is not distributed to a nurse or vice versa. So you really need to make sure that you segment your talent communities correctly. And then you need to automate and have a good technology to support that process, that ideally it's not manually, and therefore is much cheaper. Okay, so last slide for today, and I think everybody knows that. And the last step in the network recruiting approach I see in the market is employee referrals. And everybody's talked that. I'm sure all of you have discussed that internally. I'm sure that many of you have already tried that. What we see on the marketplace is that very often employee referral programs they failed, and that is not necessarily. This is not necessarily for bad reason, because it was set up badly. But the point is that very often you start with a lot of enthusiasm, and then later on nothing happens. And there's a lot of disillusionment from referral programs, where a lot of employees who heard someone do not hear back. They do not get feedback. There is dispute when you combine that with a financial incentive. You pay for a referral. So therefore, it's really important to understand how to set up. Nevertheless, it's very important because there are multiple studies out there on the market, and this is also our observation from the marketplace that employee referral programs are very, very valuable because it's important that when you look at the time saving, you hire much faster. So there are studies that say that employee referrals programs hire people 20 to 25% faster than just posting job ads. Very often, quality of the referred candidate is much higher because people who refer candidates are very much take care that they only refer the good candidates because their own reputation is on the line. Obviously, costlier because you do not have to invest in any kind of job posting or any kind of promotion. And obviously, even if you incentivize and you have the program that you pay people in order to refer, basically you pay them when somebody is hired. It still is much cheaper than posting it out or possibly employing a recruitment agency who might charge 20 or 25% of the annual income. And lastly, it's like for the retention, there are also some studies that I found, and this is also reflecting with my personal experience, where people tend to stay long. The referred people tend to stay longer, and I only have numbers available from the U.S. But in the U.S. there is by average like 33% of the people who join a company leave the company within 1 year, whereas a referred candidate is that's nearly double that stay for the first year. So, and I think that's a very, very important thing to understand, that people who are referred by your colleagues or your employees tend to be much more loyal, which is a very, very important thing in this marketplace. So if I summarize the employee referral piece, I think it's important to understand that you need to follow 6 steps to be successful. So, and this is first, you need to determine the goal. What do you really want to achieve? Do you want to have that and install that, implement that overall job categories only for job categories where you have a high scarcity of talent, or what's the plan? What do you want to do? The second piece is that have an extremely user-friendly process that is both for the referrer and for the candidate. So it's to be clear what they need to do. The rules need to be clear as well, and it has to be fully transparent so that you do not have any conflict about like payments or what happened to the candidate. I sent you an email, HR, 3 weeks ago, and nobody has reached out to my friend who I referred. So I think it needs to be really, really user-friendly. Third, with the referrals, it's important to train the workforce and also educate the workforce to tell them, what do you want to achieve? Can you benefit as an individual, and how does your contribution also help us here as an organization, and why do we do that? So fourth point from my experience is you need to make sure that you keep the engagement high. Because very often, very enthusiastically, the referral programs are started and implemented, and then after a few weeks, enthusiasm really goes down, and people are not really happy, and then it kind of like falls asleep. So what you want to do and you need to do is keep the engagement high, and this can be like with competitions, monthly leaderboards, or you have some gamification pieces that you include. But I think it's always important to talk about it regularly so that people have that in the back of their minds all the time, because it's important to understand that people who refer candidates from the outside, they're not recruiters. They have their day job and they need to do something else on top. So, and I think the last 2 things, you need to recognize the people who referred. You need to incentivize, and you made it public so that other people see that as a role model, and also to want to do that. And And I think you need a measure. I think the measurement is also very, very important, that you understand how is that contributing to our overall talent attraction strategy, and is it really something that's worth for us doing? So we highly recommend to use technology, and there are like a lot of companies out there like Rollpoint, like Zayo, like Firstbird from the European Union that really have good technologies to support that process, and we highly take a look into that. Okay, so we're ultimately there. Just a few words from me. So what we discussed today was the attract, the capture, and the convert concept. I think the conversion is much easier when you follow the steps. And I think the intention of today's webinar is not to tell you to do that each step one by one. Ideally, you take some of the content and you're able to change some of the things within your own organization, or at least try to optimize it. I think that's very important, because in the future it'll be much more important to really manage the network. And let me just jump back to the slide that I showed in the beginning, and really make sure that you understand all the different engagement channels, and move from a reactive traditional recruiting approach more towards a proactive networking, community building approach, by making sure that people are found or find you, that people are bound to your organization, you engage them, and you build communities so that they do not move away, and they have a reason to come back and stay in touch with you, and then ultimately hire candidates and a lot of talent from a warm lead. I think that's also one of the key things we see here as a global market, and best-in-class companies really understand that and invest in all these different buckets that you are seeing here on the screen. So I'm a little bit over time, so we cannot do too many questions. We have minutes, but I think time for the Q&A now.
Yes, thank you for presenting such a wonderful session. So we have received very interesting questions from the participants. So first one is, when we talk about active mobile user, social user, so can you elaborate on the same a bit?
Okay, so the is a user that is using social media like Facebook or LinkedIn on their mobile device, on their smartphone, so Android or iPhone. And from a marketing and also recruitment perspective, it's really important to understand that mobile usage requires a different approach, because if you use, for example, Facebook is a good example. So if you use Facebook, on your computer, you see on the right side, you see a lot of ads, and you see a lot of things that you don't on your smartphone. So when you want to distribute content, just as an example, to candidates or potential candidates, it's very important to understand that he will use or he will consume the content differently than sitting on the PC. So, for example, if you publish a blog post, just as an example, with 2,000 words, the chance that a candidate reads that on the subway or on the bus on his smartphone is very low, because it's like too much text, and it doesn't really reflect on how to use the technology. So that's why it's important to understand: do people use it more on the PC, or do people use it more on the mobile device? And this is why I was showing that the monthly users or the active users on mobile social media. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, very well. Thanks, Tim, for that. So our next question is from Preeti. She's saying, in India, very few companies would have jobs posted on their career section, and if they do also, so it may not be updated and utilized to full capacity. So although the ROI is huge. So what are your thoughts on the same?
how can I say? I think it's what I always recommend, and this is like a global thing. So this is I see that in all the countries. What I really recommend is make sure you have some kind of an ecosystem, and you keep candidates on your own page all the time. So if you have job postings, make sure that they are on your career page. If you have content, make sure it's on your career page. I understand it's not always easy, and then you need to invest in technology and understand what's happening. But in the internet, your competitor is only one click away. And I will give you a short example. I was consulting a company, and they had YouTube videos on their career page in order to, like employer branding material, why it's very cool to work for the company. And it was very, very beautifully made videos. What happened is, like, when you clicked on it, it would not open on your own career site, but it would open on YouTube in the internet. So which is not a problem, but a new browser would go up, and then basically you would be redirect YouTube. So you look at the video, and then on the right, and you know that there are like recommendations. So right next to the employer branding video of that company were like 3 videos from direct competitors. There's a big chance that individual who looked at the video says, hey, this is very interesting. Look at the other video, and then there's more. And then you lose the candidate, or you lose the one who visited your career site. So my recommendation is clearly at a certain point in your career roadmap or online career roadmap in your organization to tackle that, and not to rely on it. It's going to be it's really mission critical for the future.
Thanks, Tim. This one. Our next question is from Shraddha. She's asking how to attract talent for niche skills, as these candidates mostly do not update their profiles and are like passive ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great question. And one of the big trends that I'm seeing in Europe and in the US, and I've seen it in the Asia Pacific region as well, is a concept called programmatic advertisement. So what's happening is that, exactly as you say, not everybody is always working on the profiles on LinkedIn or other professional networks, but you have good opportunity to use paid advertisement, for example, on Facebook again, or on Google, and you can, if you try that, you can really segment who should see that advertisement. So you can see, I want to have a target group between, I don't know, 30 and 50 years. I want to have them in that region. They should have this interest. That also includes job interests. And for example, Facebook has a really great technology to focus on people, to understand how people are behaving, because we share a lot with Facebook. So Facebook knows us much better than a lot of other people. And I think that's a great way to directly go to your target group and try to get in their face, so to speak.
Thank you so much, Tim. So as time is a constraint, I'll share the more questions with you, and I hope you can take them offline and just revert on the emails. Will that work?
Yeah, definitely use contact details. So again, feel free, all of you, to connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. Send me an email. I'm very happy to discuss. We have a lot of colleagues from KellyOCG and Kelly Services in India who are always happy to help and engage in discussions. So please feel free to do that.
Great. Thanks. And with this question answer session, we are going to wrap up our today's webinar session. We thank once again our webinar partner, KellyOCG, and a very special thanks to Tim Proehm for his valuable time and information he shared with us today. And I'd like to thank everybody in the webinar audience for participating in today's session. We'll come back to you with many more. That concludes today's webcast. Thank you and have a good day ahead.